The triarch forum smelled like disinfectant and politics. One stung, the other lingered. Marcus Thorne signed the intake slate with a pen the clerks insisted he sanitize between letters and considered, not for the first time, whether quitting law to become a barista constituted a moral improvement. He'd just lost a smuggling case because the accused, a three-headed Xylidian, had perjured all three of its mouths simultaneously, an act of procedural audacity the court had no precedent for. A new case, tile slid across the glass and chimed. Forum versus Gralvek of Cthar. The room's ambient humidity fell a fraction. Even the air recyclers didn't like the name. Barely sentient, someone coughed behind him. Marcus capped his pen, uncapped his dented thermos, and took a sip of the tar-black liquid inside. The bailiff drone, a polished chrome orb, drifted back 6 inches, its sensors treating the thermos like a low-yield radiation hazard. Marcus decided he was going to ruin somebody's afternoon with facts. He was the only human public defender on the station. It wasn't a posting, it was a sentence. Humanity, having stumbled into the galactic community via a miscalculated warp jump, was ranked a lowly 3.2 on the sentience index. Conditionally rational, hazard adapted. They were considered glorified space orcs, useful for asteroid, mining, and little else. Defending them was hard. Defending real aliens, as one was harder. His boss, a weary Helene named Precht, waved him over, antennae twitching. Thorne, the Cthar case. It's yours. Murder 1 on a diplomat. Marcus said, scanning the prelim. This isn't a PD case. This is a political execution. It is now, Precht chirped. He's Cthar honor-bound. He requested no counsel. The forum assigned one to maintain procedural integrity. That's you. Don't do the thing. The thing where I win. The thing where you cause an incident, Precht sighed. No human circus in this court, Thorne. Judge Reese Talon is presiding. She thinks perspiration is a rhetorical threat. Just manage the plea. Gracefully. Marcus nodded, the coffee already hitting his bloodstream. Gracefully. Got it. Hook. His boss's warning was clear, but as Marcus read the file, he saw the charge. Gralvek was accused of ramming a reinforced diplomatic suite door. Marcus knew Cthar biology, and he knew basic physics. The numbers didn't add up. The holding cell was chilled to Cthar standard, the air thin and sterile. Gralvek of the Cthar was 7 feet tall, his body encased in a living, chitinous armor that shimmered like oil on water. He stood at perfect attention, facing the wall. Gralvek. I'm Marcus Thorne, your court-appointed advocate. Gralvek did not turn. I have declined advocacy. My honor is my witness. Your honor is currently mute and facing a capital charge, Marcus said, setting his briefcase down. The custodial drone in the corner beeped, rolling forward to spray the case with sanitizer. The charge is an offense, Gralvek's voice rumbled. To answer it is to give it merit. To not answer it is to give it a conviction. You're accused of killing Ambassador Selkor by ramming his door and stabbing him. They have footage, a blade match, and your thumbprint. You're not honorable. You're suicidal. Gralvek turned. His eyes were deep, obsidian facets. You are the Deathworlder. Index 3.2. You are not permitted to speak of Cthar honor. Good. Then let's talk about Cthar engineering. Marcus tapped the file. The door. Trialloy frame. Shear pins rated at 2.5 times Cthar average anaerobic output. You couldn't have breached that door. Not in 0.8 G. You'd tear your shoulder ligaments first. A flicker in those obsidian eyes. You understand biomechanics. Understand leverage. Marcus extended his hand. Humans greet each other this way. It's a sign of trust. We show we aren't holding a weapon. Gralvek stared at the appendage. He slowly extended his own massive, three-to-lone hand and grasped Marcus's. Marcus squeezed. A firm, standard human handshake. Gralvek's joints locked. His mandibles parted in a silent gasp. A nearby monitoring drone, sensing the pressure spike, let out a terrified scream and cracked its own lens against the ceiling, trying to escape. Marcus let go. Now, he said, rubbing his knuckles, let's talk about who really opened that door. Hook. Gralvek, nursing his hand, finally nodded. I will accept counsel. The door was not breached as they claim. The prosecution's evidence dump was, as advertised, overwhelming. Marcus sat in his cluttered office, the humid, recycled air tasting metallic. Dr. Enia Cater, the only human xenophysiologist on the station, sipped tea across from him, looking unimpressed by the hollow projections. It's a clean case, Marcus, she said, her voice a calm oasis in his caffeine-fueled panic. Security cam shows a tall, armored silhouette at the door. Timestamp matches. Gralvek's ceremonial blade has micro-traces of cell core's hemolymph, and a perfect Cthar thumbprint on the corridor panel. And the motive, Marcus muttered, reading a transcript. Cellcore allegedly insulted the Cthar Great Cycle during negotiations. It's too neat. It's a frame. And he countered gently, it's just a murder. Cthar is strong. He got angry. He pushed the door. He stabbed the ambassador. No, look at the data. Marcus pulled up the door schematic again, cross-referencing Inia's own file on Cthar physiology. Look, Cthar musculature evolved for 0.6 G in a sterile biosphere. They have incredible precision, but poor sustained anaerobic bursts in heavy gravity like this. And their integument relies on sterile air. Inia finished, her eyes lighting up. You're right. Stress in this station's humid, microbe-rich environment causes microedema, Marcus said. A performance crash. He wouldn't just be weak. He'd be in anaphylactic shock from the exertion. He couldn't have rammed that door. Not with that much force. Not in this atmosphere. Inia looked at the numbers, then at Marcus. The force profile required for that shear pin failure. It's not a Cthar push. It's an impact. Hook. It's an impulse profile, Marcus said, a slow, terrible idea forming, more consistent with a biped evolved on a high-gravity death world. Someone with a sprinter's legs and a 1G conditioned spine. Inia sighed. Oh, Marcus, you're going to run the circus? Absolutely not. Judge Ree's talon, an avian-manted hybrid, vibrated with procedural indignation. She struck her resonant tuning fork gavel. The pure, metallic tone demanded silence. Counselor Thorne, you will not turn this forum into a gymnasium. This court hears evidence, not Deathworlder exhibitions. Your Honor, Marcus said, projecting calm. The prosecution's entire case rests on a feat of strength. I am arguing that feat is biomechanically impossible for the defendant, but possible for another species. Prosecutor Velnixit, a gelatinous threeny floating in a specialized suspension field, shimmered. His voice was smooth, synthesized. The defense wishes to muddy the waters with species aggrandizement. The Cthar are a 5.8 index species. They are strong. The human is a 3.2. He is opportunistic. This is theater. It's physics, Your Honor, Marcus countered. The defense moves to invoke demonstrative safety protocols. Section 4. We wish to test the door. Judge Talon bristled. The DSPs are for weapons testing. Counselor, not for jogging. And where, pray tell, is this demonstration to take place? In the fields of Go? In this courtroom, Your Honor. With a court-approved reconstruction of the door segment. The judge considered this, antennae waving. The media feed was live, and the gallery was full. Denying the motion might look like procedural bias. Very well, she chirped, her voice thin with distaste. Limited tests are approved. But be warned, Counselor, the DSPs are binding. You will submit to a full medical scan before and after. If your exhibition results in physical collapse, your case is suspended, and you will be disbarred for reckless endangerment of procedure. Hook, Marcus nodded, ignoring the sudden tightness in his chest. Thank you, Your Honor. Disbarment was the least of his worries. If his calculations were wrong, he'd just prove the prosecution's case for them. It was the most-watched trial segment in forum history. They had wheeled in the door segment, a massive slab of trialloy. Marcus stood before it, not in his rumpled suit, but in simple athletic shorts and a t-shirt. The sight of his bare, pale legs caused 3 jurors to avert their eyes. Inia stood at the witness lectern, her voice calm as she narrated. The defendant, Gralvek, stands 2.16 meters. Counselor Thorne, 1.83. The defendant is primarily a precision-based life form. The human is a persistence predator phenotype. Why is the Deathworlder smiling? Juror number 6, an insectoid, whispered to his neighbor. Marcus was just breathing, loosening his legs. He wasn't smiling. He was focusing. The court medic, a trembling VRN, held a resuscitation injector, having already pre-drawn Marcus's will. Your Honor, Marcus said, his voice echoing slightly. I'm going to jog a measured distance, and then I'm going to strike a padded ram against this door. I'm not attempting to break the door. I am attempting to measure the impulse force and impact pattern. Proceed, Judge Talon said, as if granting permission for an autopsy. Marcus took a deep breath of the tangy, recycled air. He jogged to the far wall. The thud-thud-thud of his running shoes on the pristine court floor was shockingly loud. It was the sound of mass meeting gravity. He turned. He sprinted. To the gallery, it was terrifying. A 3.2 index creature, all gritted teeth and pumping limbs, moving with lethal speed. To Marcus, it was a 40-yard dash. He hit the padded ram squarely. A sound like a gunshot cracked through the courtroom. The entire doorframe groaned. A visible, spiderweb pattern dent appeared in the trialloy, centered exactly where Marcus had aimed. His heart rate monitor beeped. A steady, rapid thump-thump-thump. Aliens in the front row gasped, assuming he was in cardiac arrest. Marcus just stepped back, breathing heavily but evenly. He bowed to the judge. Demonstration complete, Your Honor. Inia directed a scanner at the dent. As you can see, she projected, the impact pattern is consistent with a high-velocity, low-mass strike. The shear pins are stressed, but not in the manner of a Cthar push. They are stressed from a human impact. Hook! The gallery was silent, stunned. Marcus, wiping sweat from his face, caught Prosecutor Velnix's eye. The Thrini wasn't panicked. He was smiling. The media blitz was instantaneous. Human brute defile court, screamed one feed. Deathworlder violence proves prosecution's point, asked another. Marcus's inbox filled with threats, most of which were biologically improbable. His stunt hadn't exonerated Gralvek. It had just made humans look more dangerous. You've shown a human could do it. Leary Sock, his court-appointed interpreter, told him over bitter AF. You haven't shown Gralvek couldn't. Leary was street smart, fluent in 17 dialects and 5 different glandular expression languages. She was also the only one who didn't treat Marcus like a walking biohazard. I know. I'm missing something. Marcus rubbed his temples. Leary slid a data chip across the table. Her eyes darted around the empty canteen. I might have found this. It's a maintenance schematic for the diplomatic wing. The ductwork. Marcus looked at it. Leary, this is highly illegal. So is framing a 5.8 index warrior and starting an interstellar war, she retorted. Besides, you're a Deathworlder. What are they going to do? Put you in a worse office. Hook. Marcus studied the schematic. A narrow, shielded maintenance duct ran directly over the ambassador's suite. It was an alternate entry path, one that didn't require touching the door at all. Now, Judge Talon said, her voice dripping with acidic dread, you wish to bleed in my courtroom. A controlled demonstration of human immune response, Your Honor, Marcus clarified. The prosecution's case assumes Gralvek was in peak condition. Dr. Cater will testify that the environment of this station is hostile to Cthar physiology. Velnix had shimmered. Objection. The station atmosphere is level prime. It is safe for all index species. Safe, perhaps. Not comfortable, Inia said, taking a lectern. Your Honor, the Cthar evolved in a sterile, low microbe biosphere. This station, by contrast, is what humans would call dirty air. It is saturated with the biomes of 400 different species. To a Cthar, it is an allergenic nightmare. The judge reluctantly signaled for Marcus to proceed. Marcus held up his hand. Inia, with a sigh, stepped forward and used a sanitized medical lance to prick his index finger. A single, bright red drop welled up. As you can see, Inia narrated, human blood contains thrombocytes, or platelets. In response to this microtrauma, a clotting cascade has already begun. Counselor Thorne's wound will be sealed in under a minute. Marcus winced. Actually, that stings a bit. Please don't lick the wound, Marcus, Inia said deadpan. Now, a Cthar's immune system, when exposed to this level of dirty air and high physical exertion, would overreact. Exertion causes microabrasions. Their integument would swell. They would experience dermal edema, respiratory distress, and a systemic performance crash. She put up a simulation. A Cthar attempting the feat of strength alleged would have likely collapsed from anaphylaxis before the door ever buckled. Hook. Judge Talon stared at Marcus's finger, which had already stopped bleeding. She looked slightly ill. The court, she chirped weakly, will allow evidence pertaining to atmospheric microbiome. The thumbprint was Velm's strongest card. It was a perfect, damning match to Gralvek. Dr. Cater, Marcus said, is it true that Cthar prints are often used as diplomatic authentication stamps? It is, Inia confirmed. Their ridged skin is unique and difficult to forge. They are used on ceremonial wax seals for treaties and high-level communiques. Like the ones exchanged at the reception Gralvek attended hours before the murder. Precisely. Marcus held up a piece of wax, bearing Gralvek's seal. He'd had Gralvek make it in his cell. Your Honor, I present a simple casting polymer, available in any station hobby shop. He mixed the two compounds, poured it over the wax seal. He blew on it. The human act of expelling warm, high-humidity air caused the polymer to flash set in seconds. He peeled it off. A perfect, flexible, synthetic copy of Gralvek's thumb. He walked to the courtroom door panel and pressed the fake thumb to the sensor. The panel chimed and flashed green. Access granted. The gallery gasped. The print is real, Your Honor. The thumb wasn't attached. Hook, Inia, reviewing the evidence logs again, suddenly froze. Marcus, the chain of custody log for the original print. It's inconsistent. The print was logged into evidence before the forensics team officially finished sweeping the scene. They were back on the security cam footage. The overwhelming proof. Velnixit wants us to see his 7-foot Cthar, Marcus argued, using the court's hollow projector. But the camera is high, angled down. This creates lens distortion. Furthermore, Dr. Cater and I have analyzed the station's maintenance logs. Inia brought up a second file. A custodial drone, Model 7B, passed through that exact corridor at the time of the breach. Its shadow. She overlaid the drone's path. The tall, armored silhouette flickered, resolved, and shrank. The armor was just the drone's shadow merging with the culprit's. The height exaggeration is profound, Marcus said. The culprit isn't necessarily 7 feet tall. They could be 6 feet, 5 feet, 10 inches. He was winning. The case was unraveling. A fascinating theory. Prosecutor Velnixit's voice glided through the court. A pity, it is irrelevant. Veln raised a manipulator. The prosecution introduces new evidence, just unsealed by the diplomatic corps. Footage from inside the reception, 2 hours before the murder. The hollow feed flickered to life. It showed Ambassador Selkor and Gralvek. They were arguing. The audio was off, but the body language was clear. Gralvek, massive and armored, drew his ceremonial blade. Selkor recoiled. Gralvek lunged, and the blade clearly touched the ambassador, drawing a trace of blue hemolymph. The gallery erupted. Judge Talon slammed her tuning fork. Hook! Marcus's stomach dropped. The footage was damning. It destroyed his trace transfer theory and established a clear, violent motive. It was a ritual of measured intent. Gralvek roared, rattling the bars of his cell. He insulted the great cycle. He accused my people of duplicity. So you did assault him? Marcus demanded. No, it is a test. A Cthar cultural custom. Gralvek struggled, his literal mind failing to find the words. When honor is questioned, the blade is drawn. It is touched to the skin. If the challenger is true, they do not flinch. Selkor flinched. He failed the test. I sheathed my blade and left. That's what the footage shows. A ritual. Yes. Any Cthar would know. Great. The jury is a mix of Helene, Thrini, and one very confused insectoid. They see an assault. Marcus paced the cell. This explains the traces. It explains the motive. But it doesn't give you an alibi. The murder was 2 hours later. Where were you, Gralvek? Gralvek turned away. I cannot say. Cannot. Or will not. It is a matter of honor. Your honor is killing you. Marcus slammed his thermos against the wall. The clang made the guard drone level its weapon. I am this close to proving a conspiracy. The door, the print, the camera, it's all a frame-up. But I can't defend a client who won't talk to me. He picked up his briefcase. If you won't tell me, I'm done. Hook. Marcus moved to the door. I'll withdraw. Wait. Gralvek's voice was strained. I will consider. But first, you must finish your argument. You must show them what a death world truly is. Marcus's final demonstration was his most theatrical. He wheeled in a planetary simulation pod. Judge Talon looked one vibration away from having him arrested for contempt. The prosecution, and indeed this entire forum, operates on the prejudice of the sentience index. Cthar 5.8. Strong, rational. Human 3.2. Weak, chaotic. I submit that you have the definitions backwards. On one side of the holopod, the Cthar homeworld appeared. A paradise of gentle plains, stable temperatures, and a single, pale yellow sun. Cthar evolution, Inia narrated. Stable. Predictable. It produces specialists. Now, Marcus said, Earth. He hit the display. The pod flickered. It showed a time-lapse of a single patch of land over 1 million years. Tectonic plates smashed together. Mountains rose. Ice ages buried the continent. Supervolcanoes erupted. The climate graph looked like a heart attack. This, Marcus said, is the crucible. We are not specialists. We are generalists. We are the descendants of the things that didn't die when the sky fell. We are not strong despite our world. We are robust because of it. He zoomed in. This, he said, showing a slide of a simple mosquito. This insect has killed more humans than all our wars combined. It is a vector for 1,000 diseases. Juror number 6, the insectoid, made a faint choking sound and began cleaning his antennae frantically. Our immune systems, Marcus pressed, are not just systems, they are standing armies. Our bones are not just frames, they're shock absorbers. Our minds are not just rational, they are adaptive. We are built to survive the impossible, because the impossible is what we call Tuesday. Hook, the jury was staring, not at a 3.2 brute, but at an ambassador from a nightmare. They were swayed. Then, Judge Talon struck her fork. Counselor, this borders on species aggrandizement. You are on the thinnest ice imaginable. The pressure worked. That night, in his cell, Gralvek broke his taboo. I have my alibi, he said, his voice low. At the time of the murder, I was in the diplomatic wing's ritual purification bath. Alone, Marcus asked, hope surging. No. Gralvek looked pained. This is the offense. It is forbidden. I was with a witness. A witness. Who? Ambassador Selkor's chief aide. A Helene. We were discussing the treaty. Off the record. Marcus's blood ran cold. A Cathar warrior and a rival diplomat's aide. Meeting in secret? It was a scandal that could shatter the treaty worse than the murder. Gralvek, this is motive. They'll say you were colluding. It is the truth, Gralvek said. I was there. The aide will confirm it. Leary, Marcus come his clerk. Find Selkor's aide. Name. Talisair. Leary's voice came back, tight with panic. Marcus, I can't. Talisair's diplomatic immunity was invoked. She was recalled from the station. Left an hour ago. Hook, as if on cue, Marcus's console chimed. A new motion from the prosecution. Motion to strike any and all testimony regarding the defendant's alibi as uncorroborated, scandalous, and procedurally void. Velnix, it was burying him. He's boxing us in. Marcus snarled, staring at the maintenance schematic Leary had given him. The duct. It had to be the duct. He had 20 minutes before the final summation. Inia, file a motion for a 5-minute recess. Site. Atmospheric humidity imbalance. Something Talon will buy. And you. I'm going for a walk. Marcus ran. He sprinted down the service corridors, ignoring the alarms from custodian drones. He found the access panel for the diplomatic wing, popped it, and hauled his needlessly dense body inside. The duct was cramped, hot, and smelled of ozone. A Cathar would be in anaphylaxis within minutes. Marcus was just uncomfortable. He army crawled, following the schematic, until he was directly over the late ambassador's suite. And he found it. Not a scuff mark. A residue. On a junction box, right over the suite's private access hatch, was a smear of tacky, black material. Nearby, a deep gouge in the metal, as if from a pry bar. He scraped a sample. As he backed out, he braced his hand against the dusty wall, leaving a perfect, sweaty, 5-fingered print. A custodian droned word into the duct behind him, its single red eye fixing on the print. It emitted a trill of pure, unadulterated fury. Hook! Marcus sprinted back to the court, the residue sample clutched in his hand. He tossed it to Inia. Analyze this. Now. Final summations, Judge Talon declared, just as Marcus slid back into his seat, breathing hard. The prosecution rests. Velnix, it said, his field shimmering with confidence. The evidence is clear. The motive is clear. The Deathworlder Circus has been entertaining, but it is ultimately irrelevant. Defense, Judge Talon chirped. Marcus stood. Your Honor, the prosecution is right. My demonstrations were irrelevant, because I was testing the wrong entry point. He projected the image of the maintenance duct. The killer didn't go through the front door. They went through the ceiling. He held up the analysis from Inia. This is a high-friction, human-compatible grip compound, found in the duct. It's black market, used by mercenaries. He then showed the pry bar mark. The killer entered silently. They killed the ambassador. And then, to frame the strongest person on the station, they staged the exit. He walked to the door reconstruction. They didn't push their way in. They rammed their way out. He picked up the padded ram. He braced himself on the inside of the door and performed a sprinter's leg press, a jackknifing motion of pure, 1G conditioned human power. Crack! The door burst open, the shear pins snapping. The impact marks on the outside of the door. A perfect match for the crime scene. Hook! The courtroom was dead silent. Juror number 6's internal monologue, broadcast by mistake to the court stenographer's feed, flashed on the main screen. Footnote. Query. If true, the Deathworlder did it. Correction. A Deathworlder did it. A human, Marcus said, letting the words hang in the air. Or a species with Earth-like capabilities. Someone who could handle the dust in that vent. Someone who could use this grip compound. Inia, at the lectern, added the final piece. We cross-referenced purchase logs for the compound, Your Honor. It was purchased 2 days before the murder by a holding company. A holding company, Marcus continued. That is a known front for the Signian trade bloc, the very faction that stood to lose billions if Ambassador Selkor's peace treaty was signed. He turned to the prosecutor. A faction, I note, that prosecutor Velnixit has met with 3 times in the last cycle. You knew. You knew there were alternate suspect vectors. You knew the Helene aid was leaving. You suppressed it all to protect public order and secure a fast conviction. Velnixit's gelatinous form began to quiver, not with confidence, but with uncontrolled agitation. He'd been caught. The verdict was a formality. Not guilty. Gralvek was released. The Cthar stood before Marcus in the chaotic corridor, reporters swarming. You used your world's chaos, Gralvek rumbled. It was effective. Just doing my job. Marcus held out his thermos. Want some? Gralvek leaned in, sniffed the dark liquid, and recoiled, his armor rattling. A powerful toxin. It's coffee, Marcus sighed. It's a long story. Gralvek put his massive hand on Marcus's shoulder. I have studied your idioms, counselor. I believe the correct one is knock knock. Marcus blinked. Who's there? Justice. Marcus actually snorted, a laugh escaping him for the first time in weeks. He turned from the crowd, his work done. Velnixit was being censured. The treaty, with the conspiracy exposed, was saved. He walked past a bank of screens. The sentience index was being debated. Humanity, 3.2, reassessment pending. He got to his office and looked at an old, closed file on his desk. A pro bono case. A human kid, wrongly accused. A case he had lost. He closed his eyes, then opened them as his pager buzzed. New case. A Xylidian shoplifter. He grabbed his thermos, checked his reflection, and headed for the door. He stepped in the main concourse and, not wanting to be late, broke into a light jog. The entire concourse, Helene, Thrini, Cthar, and a dozen other species, parted like water before a bomb. They saw a 3.2 index creature, a predator, sprinting. They saw a weapon with legs. Marcus Thorne just saw a man, late for work, running on fumes. Hook! Leary Sock watched him go, a small smile on her face. A cloaked figure stepped from the shadows beside her, the Helene aide, Talisair. He's better than they think, Leary said. I know, the aide whispered. We'll need the Deathworlder again.